Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the JB Show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. It is so good to see all of you here on this beautiful day. Today is April 16th, 2023. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. Wonderful afternoon. All of you, come on in, have a seat, sit on down. It is good to see all of you here today. Just let you guys know the JB Show is available every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also catch me on RBN Live on Tuesdays at 4 and the Savvy and JB Show on Thursdays at 6. I also host my own channel called the JB Font Channel. If you guys would like to, you guys can go to that. I also put the link in the description below to my channel if you guys would like to go there and see what I have to talk about on there. But I also have my own channel if you guys would like to. So go ahead and give that a follow as well. Just to let you guys know, I want to thank all the people who are patrons on Patreon, as well as all of the members. And yes, we do have memberships, $3.99 here on RBN. So thank you so very much to all the people who have contributed, and as well as anybody who contributes any type of mutual aid to us whatsoever. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can go to our Substack. If you guys like to get email notifications, you guys can go to Substack, revolutionaryblackout.substack.com, and you guys can do that right there. Also, thanks to Aaron, our graphics designer. If you guys would like to contribute to Aaron, our graphics designer, who does great work for us for our graphics, you can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout, or you can go to Cash App $ Mutual Aid Forever, no spaces. Thank you so very much to Erin for all that she does as well. Now, just to let you guys know, I, as always usual, whenever I am here, I always say hello to all of the patrons, all of the viewers. Sorry, it's been a long day yesterday. So if you guys would like to, go ahead and make yourself known in the chat, and I'll shout you out. Good to see all of you here. Eric Gray saying calling DeSantis a clown is an insult to actual clown. Damn, Eric. Woo, coming in hot. All right, Ty G says DeSantis is too busy helping those 100,000 Ukrainian Azov refugees get here. Oh boy, he is one of a kind, I'm telling you. Ryan Wagner is also in the chat saying Ron and Ted Cruz not only look they could be long lost brothers, but they also have the exact same reaction when there is a natural disaster in their state. The reaction is to run away. Yeah, bunch of cowards, man. Old man Barker's in the chat saying, hey, buddies. All right, good to see you. All right, we have Kyle Jones saying DeSantis is too busy drawing up plans to invade Mexico if he becomes president. Look, what they're trying to do in nationalizing their lithium in Mexico, among other things, is it makes me pay attention, but at the same time, I'm a little bit scared for AMLO. I'm gonna be real. Look at what the United States has done to so many other countries around the world, namely what they did to the president of Chile when they installed Pinochet. Like, that was, the United States has done some nefarious stuff, and they will continue to do it on behalf of corporations. It is crazy. Global Solidarity comes in and says, for Assange. Yes, thank you so very much. All right. We have Desert Mantis coming in saying, I hear JB rambling about. Yeah, I was rushing. I was rushing because there's some stuff that I was trying to get done, and it just like, you know how when technology doesn't work the way you want it to, and you're doing it over and over and over and over again, and then just doesn't get it, just doesn't do it. And so then you finally get frustrated, and then it finally happens after you spent many, many minutes trying to fix what you needed to fix. So yeah. Damn you, planned obsolescence. All right. We have Carrie Jones coming in saying, JB, great tweet quote on Jimmy Dore. Yeah, I saw that. I did not know. I think I would. Okay, so Jimmy goes live on my dialysis days, and so sometimes I don't catch him because I'm resting from dialysis. I'm asleep, right? Because dialysis knocks me out, and so there's times where I may catch him, I may not catch him, so I don't catch him all the time. So, but that was pretty cool. I saw that. Thank you guys so much. I think a couple people showed me screenshots of my tweet on there. We have Aaron coming in saying, hello, good to see you. Zombie in the air says, JB, wave, chat. All right, saying hello to everybody in the chat. Optimism of the will says, good day. Reality Revolution says, hey, all, with a big old smiley face. Hens T, good to see you, Hens T. Says, in 1978, New Orleans had a once in a 500 flood. Then another in 1979 and 1981. Till it's almost a normal springtime thing. Yeah, that's crazy. VS Adams says, yo, JB, good to see. Is that line from, oh my God, that line from my wave cap is still on my head. Good God. Anyway, the things I do to look beautiful for y'all. We have Steve coming in the chat saying, strength, love, and solidarity. Good to see you, Steve. All right. We have anonymous source saying, I wish they stopped calling it a 1,000-year flood when these floods are occurring every year now. Yeah, but you know what's funny? The thing is that they shouldn't be occurring. That's the thing. Or it should be a lot more rare than what it is. That's all. Matthew O'Brien says, watch out for the Federal Reserve digital currency. It is the largest step in our march towards communism. Hang on. Yeah, Federal Reserve digital currency isn't really a march towards communism. It's really a march towards the state, actually, the state that's run by capitalists seeing us and spying on us on what we spend and how we spend it, like FedNow. Yeah, that's not communism. Matthew, have you been on this channel before? Most of our members are communists, and they don't agree with this Federal Reserve digital currency. I'm a socialist. I don't agree with the Federal Digital Reserve currency. Oh well, nice to have you. Screw Google comes in and says, what up, fam? Good to see you, Screw Google. Whatever, man. I haven't seen you in a while. Says, hey, y'all. All right. Optimism of the will says AMLO has people on his side. The U.S. does not. True. Rick Solis coming in saying, hey, y'all. Is it Solis or Solis? Have I been saying it wrong this entire time and you just been gracious enough to let me say it wrong? Please correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Because I want to make sure I get your name right. Goodness. Great. See, we have Scum777. Interesting name. It could get really complicated if the U.S. invades Mexico. I hope not. I got peoples in Mexico. Well, not related to me, but I got friends, Zombie in the air coming in with laughing. All right. Let me see. Who else do we have? I didn't get to say hello to. Let me see. Dana Fairbanks says authoritarian. Well, the United States is Authoritarian. V.S. Adams coming in saying War Media, Beauty and the Boomer, Trailer Park Pundit having a special stream at 5:45. Stream at Ithaca. I'm going to try to get an interview with Gabriel and John Shipton. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. All right. And let me see. Bill Bradley says there's no difference between socialism and communism. Marx used the term essentially interchangeably. Lenin said the goal of socialism is communism, but there are not two different things. Okay. I still have to get into reading Marx. This is one of the reasons why I don't call myself a Marxist, because even though I pretty much am kind of de facto that, I haven't read it yet to feel comfortable enough calling myself a Marxist. You know what I mean? I don't want to put a title on myself where I don't know what the title is. Like, I know what a socialist is. And so therefore, that's why I'm comfortable calling myself that. So I want to dive into it, find out exactly the ins and outs of Marx, and then I can be like, oh, I'm a Marxist if I agree with what he says. So you know what I mean? So I want to make sure that I do that. I want to do it justice as far as the actual putting the label on myself, an accurate label. Just, you know what I mean? That's all. And Rick says, you said it right the first time. Okay, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. And Jay the Informant coming in with thumbs up. Good to see you. All right. Now, let me check The Rock. Nobody on The Rock yet? Okay, there will be people coming in soon. Now, I want to get to our story for the first story for today. What are we going to be talking about? Let's show you guys what that is. The story for today is a 1,000-year flood and DeSantis is MIA, and the return of child labor. So we're going to be talking about those two subjects today. These are both very important subjects to be talking about today. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. This is not one of those sexy subjects, but hey, you know, these are the things that need to, you know, take place. These conversations need to happen because these are extremely important topics. So now we're going to start off with Ron DeSantis. I live in Florida. I know. Go ahead. Say your sorries. Go ahead. I know. So he's the governor of my state. A couple days ago, there was a flood, a very bad flood in Fort Lauderdale. In if you guys don't know, Fort Lauderdale then is in that South Florida. So in South Florida, there was this flood that happened. And so, make sure. Let me show you guys the article. Okay, here it is. I want to go down to Fort Lauderdale. I've never been to South Florida, even though I've lived here almost my entire life. Tragedy of being broke and poor. Anywho, so this is from Local 10. It says, frustrated Fort Lauderdale residents remain underwater. And so this says some residents in Broward County are still dealing with flooding issues caused by this week's historic rain. Waters have slowly continued to recede, but it has been a slow process for many, and continuing rain hasn't helped. Inside the Edgewood community of Fort Lauderdale, the streets are clear, but many homes and yards remain flooded. Those impacted by it have been totaling up the value of everything lost, both inside and outside their homes. Quote from Marlise Perez says, everything is damaged. All the appliances, the water heating, everything. The smell is really bad inside the house. Perez says she and her family were able to escape through a window as waters inside the home reached waist level for the adults and head level for children. That's scary, man. And a lot of people are probably thinking, well, if you know there's a flood, how in the world, like, how did you stay in there and, that happens to you where you start to get flooded out? Like, don't you leave, you know, early on? And the thing is like, where? And then on top of it, when it comes to floods like this, like, you don't really know how well these things happen. You don't know how it's going to come about. Like, it could just be a torrential rain. It's not anything that you foresee like a hurricane. And a hurricane, it's like, okay, potential flooding, time to evacuate. When it's just a torrential downpour within a given area, you don't know this. And there's a couple questions that I also have about it too that we need to get into. But when your systems in the city or the county that you live in aren't working properly, the infrastructure, you think that it's working properly until it doesn't. So yeah. So there's a lot of people that can get stuck. And then on top of that, where are you going to evacuate to? A lot of people, a lot of working people, and by working, I'm talking about poor working, working class. I'm talking about just people who, are workers, people who do not have, the means, to jump and go into a hotel or jump up and have $500 just for an emergency, and they can just go, outside the city or outside the state in order to evacuate. A lot of us don't have that. And so that's why whenever people are like, oh, you need to evacuate, it's like, where to? Some of us, our entire families are in that area, or our families are too far away for us to travel to because we don't have enough money to get there. So where to? That's the question. A lot of people don't ask, you know? And then on top of it, sometimes flood zones can also be of a lower price because there's not that many people who want to live there. But it's cheap enough for you. Anyway, let's get back to the article. Perez said that she and her family and aide was escaped through the window as waters inside the home reached waist level for the adults and head level for the children. We were all doing a prayer right before we jumped through the window. Across Fort Lauderdale, inside the Melrose Park community, families are dealing with similar situations. Flood water remains in the street several inches high. Neighbors want answers from the city because they believe the drains failed. See what I said about infrastructure? Quote, everything in there is wet. We just installed brand new cabinets, totally damaged. That's from Della Musgrove. Frustration and wanting people to take responsibility and do what they're supposed to be doing, but we can't do that. That's why we have elected officials and people that are responsible. Fort Lauderdale officials spoke Saturday evening, saying they continue to pump waters in neighborhoods like Edgewater. Our engineer staff is analyzing ways to improve the work that 2 or 3 feet of water remains in some areas. Fort Lauderdale officials says they are about to launch a debris removal operation. They also said they are concerned about the standing water that could be attracting mosquitoes. By the way, mosquitoes, they can spread diseases. So that's another thing that they have to worry about. It says they're asking if residents notice a big concentration of mosquitoes to contact the county's mosquito control division. So that's what's going on. And this was said to have been a 1,000-year flood. And this flood has really like destroyed so many homes. And let's see. It is terrible because you have all these different people who are workers who they don't really have a means to, you know, they don't have a second home like some rich people do. They don't have anything like that. And what do you expect them to do? You know, that's why it is so important for us to change the system, because the thing is that when things like this do happen, who gets screwed? Not the rich. The rich are fine. It's the poor. The poor and the working poor are always the people who are left out to lurch. This is so imagine being in like a shopping center and in shopping center area, and because you heard that it's flooding, and in that shopping center area where you think flooding may start happening, okay, I'm not going to leave my car at my place because it may flood, and I want to keep my car. So you take it over to the parking lot of a shopping center and you park it there, and then you come back and your car's still flooded. This is a perfect example of individual solutions to a systemic problem. You see, an individual solution would be a person goes and finds a place of higher ground for themselves in order to get safety away from something like flooding, right? But what about everybody else? Because guess what? Everybody else is also experiencing that same issue. And then on top of it, you still have to worry about the issues that everybody else is worried about. You see, I'm in Orlando. It's literally a 3-hour drive away from me. And we experienced flooding, not in our home, but during the hurricanes last year. It was flooding in our street. We could not leave. And me and my family were literally sitting outside. This was like after the strongest part of the hurricane passed over us. And we're sitting, in front of the garage. And we're looking at, because our condo is literally elevated. So they elevated our condo higher. So it's kind of on a small hill. And so we're watching people trying to drive through down our street, and our street's completely flooded. And I guess this car full of people thought that they could just race and go through really fast. And then by the time they got halfway in, the car stalled. And we just looked, because on top of it, you got to remember, it's not just water. There's also could be sewage. And remember, we live in Florida. There are snakes, gators, and lizards. I'm sorry, but I'm not about to get in that water. Now, of course, there was like 3 people in the car. So they were able to push the car out of the water. Plus, I'm a dialysis patient. I can't lift or push more than a few pounds. So I wouldn't have been able to help anyway. But the problem is, they got into that situation. But the thing is that if the systems were working properly, would they have, you know, would they have had to deal with that? Like, for instance, and this is after construction in my area where they actually rebuilt the storm drain system. So it was brand new, and it still wasn't adequate enough because that hurricane just dumped water everywhere. So yeah. But what of Ron DeSantis, though? What about him? Where was Ron DeSantis? Because a lot of people are asking that question. Let's go to the article. Wait, did I? Okay, I got it. I thought I deleted. I thought I deleted my link. I almost screamed, Mariah Carey style. Anyway, so let's get into this. So this is out of the Miami Herald. It says mayors praise Florida's flood response as Trump-friendly critics rip DeSantis travel. Says workers with the environmental land development company pump out water at the intersection of Broward Boulevard and Northwest 8th Avenue in Fort Lauderdale, still flooded after heavy rain in Broward County for at least last 2 days. And this was 3 days ago. So it says critics aligned with Donald Trump, including the former president's son, attempted to make Ron DeSantis handling a flood in South Florida a political issue on Thursday, attacking the Republican governor for traveling out of the state despite heavy rainfall. The criticism came as local officials in hard-hit areas, including some DeSantis Democrats, praised the state's response to storms, which dumped as much as 26 inches of water in parts of Fort Lauderdale and led to dozens of rescues in cars and homes in Broward County. The former president's son, Donald Trump Jr., tweeted Thursday that DeSantis should not have left Florida. Some Democrats joined in as well. Donald Trump Jr. says Fort Lauderdale is underwater and DeSantis is campaigning in Ohio right now instead of taking care of other people suffering in his state. In a broader political context, his attacks against DeSantis aren't unusual. Trump and his allies have regularly attacked the governor for months in anticipation that DeSantis will eventually decide to run against the former president in the 2024 GOP presidential primary. Early hypothetical polls of the race show Trump and DeSantis are leading in the field of potential candidates, often by a wide margin. The governor, in fact, was in Ohio on Thursday as a part of a nationwide book tour that has seen him visit Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, among other places. He is scheduled to visit New Hampshire on Friday, which just passed, a state that holds the GOP's primary second nominating contest. It says that Meyer said the county has not submitted its damages estimates to the state, but the governor's declaration seemingly just came hours after Broward County declared its own state of emergency Thursday. So some people are saying that to not go up against Ron DeSantis because Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency even though he was outside the state. So you have one side, which is primarily Trump Republicans, saying, oh, no, he hasn't been in the state, so he needs to be there, and he's basically abdicating his duty as a governor, whereas others are saying, no, he's not abdicating his duty as a governor. He's actually doing what he's supposed to do. He declared a state of emergency really hours after the flooding had, came about. So He's actually doing his job. He's just also out of state. And so you have two different sides saying one or the other. Um, Here's the thing. Okay, don't shoot me for this, right? That's what the governor's supposed to do. They're supposed to declare a state of emergency. The fact that he didn't the fact that he declared it within hours and it wasn't days, standard operating procedure. However, sounds to me like he should have been there at the same time. Like, it's coming. You could have at least postponed. I mean, you're the governor of a state. Come on. So it's kind of a catch-22, but at the same time, it's like, I don't like Ron DeSantis, no ways. So, but even still, he did declare a state of emergency. Now, is he going to be down there? I haven't seen any reports on it yet, but I'm pretty sure he's going to go down there because, if he has political aspirations, especially in South Florida, especially with a lot of Republican people that are in South Florida, especially a lot of Republican leaning Cubans, then yeah, I can see that. Now, let's take a look at what Donald Trump Jr. said. It's just to give her more of a receipt. I don't know what it is about Donald Trump Jr., but he looked like the type of kid that always would talk smack about people, and then he will always talk about my father, my father, my father, my father. He just screams that type of person. It's that annoying kid. Anyway, Donald Trump Jr. says Fort Lauderdale is underwater and DeSantis is campaigning in Ohio right now instead of taking care of the people suffering in his state. And then he quote tweets this video. Let's take a look at what they say.
From the treatment plant, but it was all treated water. Never was there ever untreated water discharged into the watersheds.
Have you spoken with Governor DeSantis?
Governor DeSantis has not yet called. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm sure he's very interested in what's going on here, and we're happy to work with his office. In the meantime, the state agencies we've been working with them. The Fish and Wildlife Office has been working with us, so we appreciate that. I'm not sure the governor himself needs to be involved, but the state agencies have been very helpful.
So he basically said that DeSantis has not responded yet. So that's basically what has happened. Let's finish.
And you said so far there have been over 900 rescue calls. What do you have to say to people that are trapped in their homes?
So basically, by that point, he has been contacted, but no response. But then hours later, he put the state of emergency. So it's like, I want to attack him on the state of emergency thing, but I had to be measured and say, yeah, I mean, for the most part, standard operating procedure to do it, especially when you don't know that it's going to cause a flood like that until after the fact. People can't predict things. So it just puts a bad taste in my mouth to give him any type of praise. You know what I mean? Anyway. Let's take a look here. Yeah, I just feel bad for all the people down there, man. Okay. Let's take a look.
Flood emergency in southeast Florida, swamped by more than 2 feet of rain, with many still underwater tonight. Sam Brock is in Fort Lauderdale. Sam, what's the situation there right now?
Lester, good evening. The situation right now is that there's still flooded neighborhoods here. This, as fire officials have rescued or saved more than 1,000 people so far, as operations, Lester, are still ongoing.
After life-altering levels of rainfall, Fort Lauderdale streets are still filled with parents treading through water and clutching loved ones closely.
I've been here 22 years, so it's the first time I see this happen.
The city counted more than 1,100 people who called for help.
This is a disaster akin to a hurricane strike.
I was scared for the family and everything else.
Luis Alvarez says the torrential turn of events ruined 2 cars and trapped him inside his house for 2 days.
Water come up the first step, second step, third step, and it kept going halfway.
Signs of distress everywhere.
We are a day and a half removed now from the main event here in Fort Lauderdale. There are still people wading through water in the streets. That's how bad it is.
The historic level of rain, 26 inches in 7 hours, left cars littered across the city and shut down the airport since Wednesday.
26 inches in 7 hours. Imagine going to work and then when you get home from work, your house is flooded. Like, that's how long it just that quickly. That's a lot of rain in a short period of time. 26 inches in 7 hours. You can't in 7 hours. That's wild, man. Yeah.
Until finally reopening this morning. Left cars littered across the city and shut down the airport since Wednesday until finally reopening this morning. Elsewhere, a record heat wave sweeping across the nation. 113 million people experiencing temperatures 15 degrees above average.
You see, when people talk against climate change, people will say, oh, well, these things happen. The climate naturally changes. It's like, yeah, but does it change this much? Also, on top of that, think about the infrastructures that we have. Our infrastructures that we have do not allow for a lot of water retention in our ground because we have a lot of concrete and asphalt in the areas. So guess what happens? That water stays on top. It doesn't sink and go down to the ground. So that on top of the climate change that we're perpetuating, and y'all wonder why we have heat waves in the middle of April. In the middle of April. I'm trying to calm down. In the middle of April, up north. What's the temperature here today? Hang on. It's 84. It's 84 degrees right now here in Florida. Right? And it's 15 degrees plus above average. Yeah, this is going to be a wicked hurricane season for us in the Southeast. Keep an eye on your loved ones. Keep an eye on me, because this is gonna be crazy. I'm telling you, watch. We are look. If we don't get a hurricane this season, number one, I'll be surprised. Number two, I'll be grateful, because I do not. This is something that I'm like, no. It is look, when it's hotter than normal, that means that warm air, those tropical depressions, they start soaking up that warm water. That water starts to evaporate. Next thing you know, they start forming, start getting that cyclone in the middle. Next thing you know, we got our hurricanes. By the way, hurricane season starts on June 1st. Maybe, just maybe, I'm making a prediction, but I think we're going to start having our first tropical depressions by mid-May. I think hurricane season is going to start a little early. I see it. And you know what's worse is the fact that hurricanes also bring torrential flooding like this. And if hurricanes can dump water like this, just like a regular storm could, there's no hope for that area. Because it's clear that the infrastructure didn't work well. And they're like, well, this is a once in 1,000-year flood. Well, I'm like, well, maybe we should actually tailor our infrastructure to make the climate to not perpetuate climate change so that we won't have things like that. It's funny. Climate change actually contributes to so much damage to the point where it literally hurts us economically. Like, it would literally save money in order to combat climate change. Well, okay. It would save money for workers. I'll put it that way. Because these big corporations, they will make out like bandits just to price gouge you for things resulting from climate change. How's the air conditioning business going? Especially the owners of these big HVAC companies. I wonder how they're doing. Carrier their business must be booming right now. Because as temperatures rise, the more people need air conditioning systems. You got to think about these things from the money aspect too. I don't know. My hamster wheels are turning. What do you guys think?
Degrees above average. New York even hitting 90 degrees for a second day in a row, though incoming showers should provide relief. While in Florida, relief came in a different form.
Baby seat down.
Stephen Finnegan, visiting from Ireland with his wife and 2-year-old son, was trapped in rushing waters, then rescued by random strangers.
Thankful for good people. It'd make you question your own kindness.
Lives saved by a flood of compassion. Sam Brock, NBC News, Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on in Fort Lauderdale. I'm telling you, man. And the thing is that what makes me scared is that it could happen here in Florida. Not Florida, but in Orlando and in Orange County. Because if it can happen there, then it can happen here. And if it can happen here, then it can happen in South Carolina. It can happen once again in Louisiana. It could happen in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina. All because our infrastructure isn't up to par the way it should be. And what was it? What did they say? They give our infrastructure a grade of what? D minus, or I think it went up to C plus, maybe. But even still, with our infrastructure being as dilapidated as it is, I mean, one of the good things, and I know we, I talk to, well, I get responses from Roger Meadows on my channel quite often, but he talks about an infrastructure, a public bank that also helps pay for infrastructure. But really, ultimately, this system needs to be dismantled. Because if we had a truly good central planning model, then we could also centrally plan around making sure that we have top-notch infrastructure in order to take care of, the levees and the storm drains, and, making sure that we have, proper bridges, water treatment plants, things like that. But unfortunately, they don't want that. And by they, I mean the corporate dictators. The corporate dictators don't care. Their central planning model is centered around profit. It's not centered around us actually having what we need in order to not only survive, but thrive. Rick Soli says could happen here on the Texas Gulf Coast. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. Anyway, so I have this other article, but it's really talking about the businesses that are affected, especially if you're a small business owner. Like the infrastructure, to keep it up to par and working optimally is something that is absolutely necessary for you too. But if you own a small business, they don't care about you either. And my thing is like, what implications does this have for people like you and me, right? Because my question is, what are the people who are renters supposed to do, especially if they're on the bottom apartment? What are they supposed to do, right? What about those who are working poor and they have a car? What about them? What if their car gets flooded? What are they supposed to do? Right? What if they already have a car, and they don't have transportation to get to and from work? What about getting to and from work? What about not being able to access the internet because your house flooded and now your power's out because you are working from home? What about people who lose their home because of flooding, because the house is too damaged or their apartment's too damaged from flooding? What are they supposed to do? What about the disabled people? What if you're disabled and you had, let's say, a power chair and the flooding broke your power chair? People will say, well, they have, insurance, but what if you couldn't afford the insurance? There's a lot of us that can't afford insurance like that. How many? Look, hang on. Put this in the chat. How many of you know people who have renters insurance? How many renters do you know that have renters insurance? A lot of. I'm willing to bet most renters don't have renters insurance because we can't afford it. If you can afford renters insurance, And people will be like, "Oh, it's not that expensive." Look, eggs is like damn near $10 a carton now. Please, right? Screw Google says none. Swery Ferry says we had to. Yeah, some places force you to have renter's insurance. Rick Solis says 0. Anthony says they make us pay $11 for renter's insurance. Optimism of the Will says people don't get insurance. They rely on crossing their fingers. Yeah. Johnson Emily says none. Whoever says I was forced to get it, so I paid for a month for the proof and then dropped it because I couldn't afford it. Aaron Costello says I have my car insurance and it's lower than when I only had car insurance. Bill Bradley says I don't think renter's insurance covers flood damage. Interesting. Daniel says can't afford insurance in Florida right now, mainly because of the flood issues every year. Yeah, because the thing is that the problem with insurance is that premiums and prices go up because every single time it happens or is more likely to happen, that means it has a higher risk. And so the higher the risk, the more that they want you to pay on premiums for these insurance. And so let's say you have a home and you have flood insurance, your premiums are about to go up. So if you're working poor living in Florida, guess what? You're about to pay more for flood insurance. So it's wild, man. Lone Wolf says insurance is a scam. Sorry, Ferry says right. Homeowners also doesn't cover insurance. So in our many flood zones, it is mandatory. True Google says we live in an upstairs apartment. When I was a teen, our washing machine broke and flooded downstairs neighbor's apartment. But it was in the contract that the apartment complex was not responsible. Wow. Yeah. This is why it's important for us to change this system, because they're literally exterminating us in many different ways. All right, so the links for those articles and those clips will be in the chat. I'm sorry, in the description. Oh boy. And I just feel bad for those people because, I've come close to it. But let's continue on to the next story. So let me check for any super chats just to make sure I didn't miss anything, because I was reading. Sometimes when people send stuff like that, I can't see it because I have to go to a different screen. Okay, so I don't think so. I probably would have saw it already by now. All right, so let's take a look at this. So I'm going to first go to this tweet by More Perfect Union. If you guys aren't following More Perfect Union, then what are you doing with your lives? You guys really need to follow them more, because they are a wonderful website as well as account to follow. It says here, oh, wait. Hang on. All right. Next story is the return of child labor. Let's get into it. Your kids are in danger. Our children are in danger right now. I really don't know how to put it. This is one of the stories that we need to keep an eye on, because the corporations are coming after your kids. And they've been coming after your kids, but they've been coming after kids of more marginalized people. But rest assured, they're going to come after your children too. Your kids are in danger, and you should know about it. Now, I'm starting to sound like somebody who's on the right? But I'm actually on the left, because I'm talking about corporate danger. You need to treat corporations like strangers. Stranger danger, corporate danger. Right? All right, so let's get into this. So this is out of More Perfect Union. It says an Iowa lawmaker says he found a child working construction while he toured a local building site. When asked how old he was, the boy was told by a supervisor in Spanish to say 18. Later, the project lead would not confirm that child labor wasn't being used on the project. The state rep, Semi Sheets, also spotted fire risks and trip hazards while touring the 200,000 square foot housing project, which is set to receive millions in state and local tax breaks. He says he immediately alerted city managers to the issues. So we're going to take a look at this article really quick. It's out of the Gazette. Let me enlarge this. All right. So it says lawmaker says he saw potentially underage worker at Banjo Block Development. Cedar Rapids will provide, I have a friend that lives in Cedar Rapids. Cedar Rapids will provide $6.5 million in tax incentives to a $49 million project. It says the Cedar Rapids lawmaker has raised concerns about potential underage labor and safety risks at the $49 million Banjo Block development that is receiving city and state tax incentives. Representative Sammy Sheets of Cedar Rapids toured the Banjo, God, that's hard for me to say, Banjo Block construction site Friday and was troubled by what he saw as fire risks and trip hazards. He also noticed at least one employee who appeared to be under age 18. He said in an email to Cedar Rapids City Manager Jeff Pomeranz. It said the most egregious of the potential violations was to work on a job site who was clearly too young to be working on a construction site. When a Spanish-speaking member of our tour asked the boy how old he was, the supervisor on the site instructed him in Spanish to tell us that he was 18. In a later conversation with the assistant supervisor of the project, he could not definitively tell me that all the workers on the project were old enough to be working on the site. So here's the thing. What they do is they've been doing this for a while now, is they've been actually going after kids who are belong to marginalized communities in order to have them work for them, because it's just easier, because they can pay them less, right? They can save more money and pocket more of the profit. So they've been doing this to kids who are children of migrant workers, children of, immigrants who have came here for a better life. But when you come here, especially from one of the brown countries, guess what? One of the black or brown countries, yeah, it's not that great. Well, unless you're from Cuba and you migrated here, I think they have some provisions for them, but they're trying to strip those too. But for a lot of kids from places like Guatemala, Honduras, and other countries, they will get taken advantage of. And so that's what we're looking at here. But now it's growing, and we'll get into that in a second. It says a project by TWG Development in Indianapolis is slated to receive $6.5 million in tax incentives for the city. The state also provides more than $17 million in tax credits connected to restoring brownfield and providing low-income housing. The four-story, approximately 200,000 square foot project will have 211 rental apartments, primarily 1 and 2 bedroom units, 1,176 square feet of ground level commercial space, 147 parking stalls, and amenities including a rooftop patio. Since our taxpayer dollars are being used with this developer, I hope that the city of Cedar Rapids will investigate whether all safety protocols are being met on the aforementioned job site. Pomeranz went back to Sheets in less than 30 minutes. He says, I will ask our staff to do an investigation. We'll report back. So this is what's happening. He says agencies that typically investigate these types of allegations include Iowa OSHA and the Division of Labor. Sheets shares some photos and video he took of Friday's tour that shows some of his concerns, including an electrical cord with exposed wire, trash inside wooden structure, and a 6-foot drop without a guardrail. So, potential to get somebody electrocuted. You have a fire hazard right now because you have trash inside of a wooden structure, and then you also have a hazard where somebody can fall and drop to their death. It doesn't take that far of a drop for you to fall to your death, especially how you fall. Or it could be a severe injury that could result in being paralyzed. So, and my thing is like, okay, you have an electrical cord with exposed wire. Why do you have that? Oh, because you want to save money by not paying for it. So TWG, founded in 2007, specializes in developing commercial market rate, affordable and senior housing projects across the country. This company focuses on financing, design, construction, and management, and has been involved in the development of 10,000 units nationwide, the site says. The Gazette reached out to TWG on Friday afternoon by phone and email, didn't hear back before the deadline. So here's the point. Our code restricts the jobs teenagers can do and the hours they can work. Children aged 15 and younger are not allowed to work in construction unless it's office or sales work. Children between the ages of 16 and 18 can work in construction with some restrictions. Two bills introduced into the Iowa legislature this year, House File 647 and Senate File 542, would, among other provisions, let teens as young as 14 request a waiver from the directors of the state workforce and education agencies to work as apprentices in factories, mines, construction sites, and warehouses, among others, as part of a quote-unquote work-based learning programs. Cedar Rapids has been trying to develop the block at 4th Avenue and 5th Street Southeast, named Banjo Block, after the Banjo refrigeration businesses that operated there for many years. Okay. So that's what was going on. And there is an article that I want to show you guys as well, because it actually is talking about what's going on in regards to this influx of child labor that is now overtaking the country, really. And this is out of the Economic Policy Institute. Says child labor laws are under attack in states across the country. Amid increasing child labor violations, lawmakers must act to strengthen standards. And this came out last month. So it says, at a time when serious child labor violations are on the rise in hazardous meatpacking and manufacturing jobs, several state legislators are weakening or threatening to weaken child labor protections. The trend reflects a coordinated multi-industry push to expand employer access to low-wage labor and weaken state child labor laws in ways that contradict federal protections in pursuit of longer-term industry-backed goals to rewrite federal child labor laws and other worker protections for the whole country. Children of families in poverty, and especially Black, brown, and immigrant youth, stand to suffer the most harm from such changes. So we got to pay very attention to this, especially because, look, RBN is a Black network, and we got to focus on making sure that not just all kids are protected, but we especially want to make sure that our kids are protected too. Because the thing is that if they're trying to put our kids to working in these hazardous conditions, which really should only be done by adults, we need to pay attention. Because we may and even then there may be some jobs, and I want you guys to pay attention to this. There may be some jobs where they do hire teenagers, but only people over the age of 18 are able to do certain jobs, certain work at those jobs. I'll give you an example. So I used to work for a fast food restaurant, and we used to have to make certain things, and there was this machine. It was basically a chopper. And what it did was, you would put whatever you needed in the chopper, and it would spin around and it would chop it, for you. Well, this is one of the machines that we under the age of 18 were not allowed to operate. So typically a lot of the managers would use it, or some of the older workers would use it. By older workers, I mean anybody over 18. Typically, there was this elderly worker that we had, and she would use it. But anyways, so because it was a cutting hazard, and so we weren't allowed to use it. But who's to say that while a teenager's working there, they go, oh, but we have no choice. We don't have anybody under the age of 18 right now, and we really need to make this. So we need you to do it. And let's say you're 17 years old and you're working there, or you're 16, and you have to go back in the back and you have to help prepare this stuff, and you have to use that machine. Well, guess what? You're doing something illegal. That's illegal. They can't operate that. And so the crazy part is, keep an eye on what your kids are doing at work too. Because if they're having them, using these machines that they're not supposed to be using under the age of 18, or having them use hazardous chemicals, or doing jobs that may be dangerous that only somebody over the age of 18 should be doing, keep an eye. Because these companies are not, they are not pure of heart. They will make your kids do some stuff that they should not be doing that could be a risk to their health and safety. Keep an eye on what these do not trust these corporations with your kids. Do you want your kid to have a job because you guys may need some financial help, or you want your kid to get some work experience? Fine, but make sure it's within, the parameters of health and safety, and talk to your kids and be like, so what'd you do at work? Oh, well, they had me use this chemical, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what chemical was it? Or they had me clean something. What chemicals did they have? What chemicals were they using? You know what I mean? 'Cause I remember working at a dinner show years ago, and we had this degreaser, and one of the workers, he wore shorts to work, which he wasn't supposed to do, but my manager didn't have the heart to tell him to, go and change and go home, or he was supposed to change or something like that, but he did it with shorts on, or no, I think he pulled his pants legs up or something like that, but his legs were exposed, and you saw like the marks and welts on his legs, and it's just like, dude, you need to be wearing shorts. You shouldn't be wearing shorts. You need to be wearing like long pants in this kitchen while using those harsh chemicals. And the thing is, like, if that can happen, and this guy was in his 40s, that can happen to him. Imagine what can happen to these kids, especially when this stuff evaporates and gets inside your lungs, especially when you're spraying it inside of a hot oven. That stuff evaporates, man. That stuff can get inside your lungs. That stuff is very important. You know what I mean? These companies and these corporations do not care about your kids. They only care about the profit that they can get off your kids. This is one of the reasons. Look, I'll put it this way. This is one of the reasons why they actually don't care about kids once they're born. The only reason why they actually want kids to be born, this is why a lot of these companies are also anti-abortion, is because they are more concerned with the potential labor that these children can give you. That's what it is. It's never about, oh, well, babies are precious and kids are precious. No, it's a potential labor that they can provide, because they see them as a future workforce. That's all it is. It's never about actually protecting kids just for the sake of protecting kids. They can give it two shits about your kid. This is why it's up to us to give two shits about our kids. Anyway, let me continue. Gosh. Says both violations of child labor laws proposed to roll back child labor protections are on the rise across the country. The number of minors employed in violation of child labor laws increased 37% in the last year, and at least 10 states introduced or passed laws rolling back child labor protections in the past 2 years. Attempts to weaken state-level child labor standards are part of a coordinated campaign backed by industry groups intent on eventually diluting federal standards that cover the whole country. Youth labor force participation declines over the past 20 years reflect that a steady growing share of young people are choosing to complete high school and obtain additional education in order to increase the long-term employability and earnings, putting off work in order to maintain more skills and education as a positive trend for both individuals and the economy, not one that should be slowed or reversed. The state and federal lawmakers must act to protect and advance the rights of workers of all ages and backgrounds while protecting poor and or immigrant youth from exploitation. Policy recommendations include raising the minimum wage and eliminating sub-minimum wages for youth, ending the two-tiered system of standards for agricultural and non-agricultural work, enforcing wage and hour laws, passing key immigration reforms, and supporting workers' right to organize and form unions. So this goes in detail about what's going on, about the violations that these states are doing in regards to child labor laws and how they're trying to roll it back. This figure says child labor violations are on the rise. Minors employed in violation of child labor laws and hazardous occupation orders fiscal years from 2015 to 2022. right? So it talks about the dark blue line is minors employed in violation of child labor laws. The light blue line says minors employed in violation of hazardous occupation orders. And as you see, from 2015 to 2022, it continues, perpetually rises. And by the way, how much you want to bet these numbers of child labor are also commensurate with the rise of the profits of a lot of these corporations? I wouldn't be surprised. Let's take a look. Industry groups are pushing state legislators to weaken child labor. It says while federal agencies are ramping up enforcement of child labor protections in response to increasing violations, industry groups are working to roll back child labor protections via state legislation. Already in 2023, 8 bills to weaken child labor protections have been introduced in 6 Midwestern states: Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, and South Dakota. And in Arkansas, where a bill repealing restrictions on work for 14 and 15-year-olds has now been signed into law. It's law now. One bill introduced in Minnesota would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work on construction sites. 10 states have introduced, considered, or passed legislation rolling back protections for young workers in just the past 2 years. So this is a great article that I would encourage you all to share, because this is a danger. That's why on the thumbnail I put those kids in the early 1900s, because that's what we're going back to. And people say, "Oh, you're being hyperbolic." Hell no, I'm not. Because the thing is that kids need to be learning and they need to thrive, not to be doing work like this. That's why this is so important, because they will stop at nothing to make sure this happens to kids. Now, there is a video that I want you guys to see that I'm going to be doing some reacting to as well. And this is also very important. So this is a video out of More Perfect Union, and it's showing it in real time what's going on. So let's go.
What is it?
Iowa State Jason Schultz.
Hang on. Let's go back, because I think it was.
What is it on? Oh, I'm going to pass on that.
That's Iowa State Senator Jason Schultz. He's the sponsor of the most dramatic rollback of child labor protections in the nation, even if he doesn't want to talk about it.
No, I'm going to pass on that. I'm just kind of stepping back on that one. I'm going to not get into any conversations. I'm going to stay away from that, although you might find out later why.
Schultz is clearly proud of his work, but as our investigation will show you, he's just one part of a shadowy national effort funded by big corporations and PACs to roll back child labor laws that have been in place since the 1930s.
More states are considering changes to child labor laws as they try to fill jobs. Maine and Michigan lowered the required age to serve alcohol. New Jersey raised the limit on the number of hours teens can work over the summer. In Minnesota, a new bill would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work construction jobs. In Iowa, proposed law would let 14 and 15-year-olds work certain jobs in meat packing plants.
The Iowa bill takes child labor law rollbacks to the next level. Think kids in ultra-dangerous meatpacking facilities, high-volume Pepsi bottling plants, and working for cheap on the searing hot ovens of fast food chains like McDonald's for 30-plus hours a week. No, for real. Iowa Republicans want to allow kids between the ages of 14 to 17 to work in incredibly dangerous, often deadly workplaces. Places like construction sites where more than 5,000 workers died last year. As it's set up now, there would be virtually no restrictions. The job would just have to be part of an education program, something that the company could invent itself. It's true that more than a third of teenagers across the US worked summer jobs in 2021, but serving ice cream isn't exactly the same as working in building demolition. So why would lawmakers put kids who are just finishing middle school into such dangerous situations? Here's what Rep. Deo, the House sponsor of the bill, says.
Right now, kids can be out till 10 o'clock if they're out for a sport or a school activity. And so why are they not able to work until, say, for example, 9 o'clock?
An actual expert we spoke to firmly disagreed.
It's a bizarre argument to argue that playing team sports is akin to working in a factory or some other dangerous environment. We like kids not to work more than 20 hours a week because that's kind of a cutoff for damage that's done to them educationally.
How are you going to say, oh, the 3-4 hours that, hell, not even that, but the couple of hours that kids are participating in team sports is the same thing as working 6-7 hours at a job and working until, late in the evening. See the mental gymnastics that some of these people, some of these stenographers and some of these lapdogs for these corporate dictators, see how they try to rationalize things? They are literally trying to rationalize your kids into slave labor. That's what they're doing. God, kids are in danger.
Okay, so why are lawmakers actually doing this?
The bill was really spearheaded by the Restaurant Association. We sort of came along. We were asked to be, we were invited to come along.
That's Brad Epperly, a lobbyist who works for big corporate clients like the Iowa Grocery Industry Association.
Remember what I said about working in restaurants? Remember what I said? Even if your kid works at, let's say, a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Whitney's, a Five Guys, I don't care if your kid works at an In-N-Out, I don't care if your kid works at a Popeyes. Look, ask them about what's going on at work. Because guess what? These corporations also run restaurants. So if they're willing to do this to your kid, guess what? They will do it. They will sit there and they will not hire that many adults over the age of 18, and then they'll hire a bunch of teenagers, and then when something goes out or they need to use a machine that they're not supposed to use, look, I was cooking and frying stuff, when I was, 16, 17, operating in a fast food restaurant. So look, real talk to your kids. If you have nieces and nephews like I do, talk to them. Be like, look, what they having you guys do it at work? What are they having you guys operate? You guys need to see that. Yeah. Or Subway. Goodness. Oh, by the way, while I'm at it, a lot of the restaurants that people work at, the reason why your wages aren't a living wage is partially because of these restaurant associations. And these restaurant associations actually own the companies that force you to take these food safety classes that you have to pay for in order to get your food safety certification. And so these same companies will also use the money that you pay for your food safety certification in order to lobby against you having a living wage in the restaurant industry. Just to give you guys a little bit something on that. Peep the game.
He's outright admitting to us that the Iowa Restaurant Association was the driving force behind this bill. They're an affiliate of the National Restaurant Association, a trade group that represents some of the biggest names in fast food, like Burger King and Taco Bell. They also lobby for big corporations like PepsiCo and Cisco. And from one look at their newsletter from this time last year, you can tell they've been hard at work spreading the gospel about the benefits of young labor. The hands-on internship at the slaughterhouse is their big priority this year, but we can't give them all the credit. This child labor law rollback originated at a meeting of the Iowa Workforce Development Board, which is overseen by Governor Kim Reynolds. Most of its members are corporate CEOs and lobbyists, and they meet up several times a year to come up with new policies. This bill was a product of a meeting in November. The WDB is chaired by Jay Iverson, executive officer of the Association of Iowa Builders, hence the emphasis on kids using bandsaws on work sites. Lobbyists from the...
Wait, hold up. Let's take it back. Let's take it back. Let's take it back. He said what?
Builders, hence the emphasis on kids using bandsaws on work sites.
Kids using bandsaws. Kids using bandsaws on work sites? Did y'all hear what I heard? Did you hear what I heard? Aaron, right. Yikes. Like what? Kids using by the way, did you guys like the stream? Go ahead and like the stream. But kids using bandsaws on work sites? So what now? We're gonna start allowing the kids to use a circular saw now? So what? We're gonna allow our kids to, we're gonna allow our kids to do all these different types of jobs that should only really be done by adults. Oh, next thing you know, guess what? Little Timmy's gonna be able to go and sweep the chimneys now. Isn't he so cute with all that dark soot on his face? What about dear God, like, are you kidding me right now? And then these same people will go, why are you getting in the way of kids getting work experience? Are you for workers? Yes, I'm for workers. But the thing is that part of that also means that allowing kids to be able to be kids, number one. Number two, with these children, they should not be doing these hazardous jobs. The human brain is not fully developed until the age of 24. Do I want somebody without a fully developed brain actually working on a bandsaw? Hell, I even have somewhat of a problem with somebody whose brain's not fully developed. But at least they have more of a more developed brain than somebody who's 14, 15. I'm telling you, man, these corporations are dangerous, man.
Lobbyists from the Iowa Association of Business and Industry are well represented on the board, which gives member corporations like John Deere and Google seats at the table. And of course, no race to the bottom would be complete without the Koch-funded Americans for Prosperity and Opportunity Solutions Network, also lobbying on the bill. Given their obvious enthusiasm, we tried to get some of these lobbyists to talk to us about the many benefits of child labor.
I'll go ahead and do this.
But they were a bit shy to take credit for their work. The next part of the...
Let me tell you something. If it is a benefit to everybody, let's say hypothetically I'm a lobbyist. I know, perish the thought. But if I were a lobbyist, right, and if I was a lawmaker and there was something that was going to be a benefit to all, I'd be thrilled to talk to people in the media about it. I'd be sitting there like, hey, so what you guys want to know? Here's how you know that they're full of it. When a politician runs away from questions regarding something that they are either sponsoring, co-sponsoring, pushing for, or voted for, that's when you know. If you know that the majority of the public is not going to be for it, that's how you know they're bullshitting. They're not on your side. And we've seen both parties do this, even including progressives. How many times have you guys seen Jose Vega go and talk about these things that are happening and, regarding Ukraine and Russia? And he'll, stand out and call out these progressives. And guess what? Then they'll shut them down. They'll have them exited out. If I was actually a progressive in Congress with the type of resolve and morals that I have, if Jose Vega came out and said, will you continue to fund these wars, yes or no, I'd be like, no, don't escort him out. Don't escort him out. This conversation is very important. Okay, what is your question? And I would say, okay, so this is what I'm prepared to do. Blah, 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 blah. But what do? They'll let them be escorted out. They'll let them be dragged out, or they'll walk away from these people because they know what they're doing is wrong. You cannot sit here and tell me that politicians that pass these laws don't know it's wrong. No, they know. They know. They want you to think that they don't know, and they'll bullshit you, and they'll put spin to make you think that they don't know, but they do know. Because whenever you confront them on it and then they want to walk away, it's because they know it's wrong. It's because they see that it's wrong. And they know that the public's not for it. But they do it under the shadows. Or they'll say, oh, well, it's the macro and the micro. They'll try to spin your way out of it just so that to make you think, oh, well, they're actually for it. Watch how they react, because how they react is indicative to how they really think about you. And this is reaction. This shows you how they think about your own kids. They don't care about you. This is why it is so important to really change the system from the ground up, because it literally is our kids' lives on the line.
The bill is clearly written for the Iowa Restaurant Association, Hotel and Lodging Association, and National Bureau of Independent Businesses, the state leaders in low-wage jobs. It would allow 14-year-olds to work in giant freezing meat lockers and raise their mandatory clock-out time from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., and then 11 p.m. in the summer.
The research that has been done has found pretty clearly that 20 hours is kind of a cutoff, and when kids work more than that during the school week, the grades start to plummet, and their school completion rate starts to plummet.
Many businesses.
Oh, who cares about kids and their education? Just give them a job and have them work, starvation wages. That's okay. Just let them work. Let them work so that they have less time to spend with their families, less time to do things that kids like to do. Fuck these corporations, man. Sorry, but I had to say it. Fuck them.
Completion rate starts to plummet.
Many businesses like retail, restaurants, and fast food joints love to hire kids because they'll take a lower paycheck. If they can stay at work even longer, places like McDonald's, which loves hiring kids, don't even need to worry about hiring adults who can fill those jobs, let alone paying them living wages.
Because they know that kids don't have the wherewithal a lot of the times to band together to say, yeah, we're not going to take this. We want a living wage. We want, proper working conditions for us. some of them don't, or some of them are intimidated. Some of them are intimidated by adults to actually demand what they should have. This is why talk to your kids about their rights as workers. The proletariat starts in the home. Worker power starts in the home. Talk to your kids about their rights as workers. If your kid turns 16 and they're like, oh yeah, I started applying for jobs, you make sure to tell them their rights as workers and keep hammering that home. I told this to my nephew. He started working for this this dollar store. I'm not going to name which one. But him and his friends started working there. And the one thing I told him was this. If they start to mistreat you, right, there, you and your friends, your homies, you guys all band together and say, if you guys don't treat us well, we will shut the store down and we will walk out. I told him that. He was like, all right, uncle, real talk. I was like, yeah. Because do not let them take advantage of your kids. Because we always talk about stranger danger and abuse and things like that. But what about abuse by the hands of the corporations on your kids? We're literally talking about child abuse, child endangerment. How many people are actually talking about this? Hi, welcome to RBN. Have you subscribed yet? How many people are talking about this right now?
Brains are not fully developed, especially that part of the brain that exercises caution, that tells a person that, oh, this is dangerous, I might get hurt. That part of the brain is just not quite there yet. And it doesn't really fully develop until the early or mid-20s.
The bill would also let 16 and 17-year-olds handle alcohol on the job, which affects.
Hold up. Hang on.
Which effectively puts them in pubs and bars with intoxicated adults. Consider.
Do you want your kid working at a bar? Would you be okay with that? Telling you, these corporations, man, oh boy.
These all big wins for BlackRock, Vanguard, Wellington, JP Morgan, Fidelity. Those Wall Street titans naturally own big stakes in the multinational food distribution powerhouses Cisco and Performance Food Service, two of the top donors to the Iowa Restaurant Association. Truly the voice of small business.
By the way, Cisco workers were also on strike again. The truck drivers were on strike again. Because if they don't treat their adult drivers and workers good, then what in the hell do you think? Why in the world would you think that they would treat your kids good? They're not. They don't care about your kids. This is why it's up to us to make sure our kids are protected in the workplace.
But there's one company that benefits more over any other.
Hy-Vee, where there's a helpful smile in every aisle.
Hy-Vee is one of the biggest employers in Iowa and one of its most prolific violators of child labor law. Every few years, a new report seems to come out about all the minors unlawfully working for them. Since 2000, Hy-Vee has been fined over $700,000 for more than 30 labor law violations, including a big fine last year for safety violations. But as much as they forked over to OSHA, Hy-Vee has been even more generous to Kim Reynolds and Iowa Republicans, shelling out over $815,000 over the last decade alone. Reynolds even kicked off her 2018 campaign for governor at a Hy-Vee and appeared on their bespoke talk show.
Hy-Vee is a great example of a phenomenal employer. They're one of our largest employers in the state of Iowa. They're in small communities all across this great state, and one of the major employers in these small communities. So very, very grateful to that helpful smile in every aisle.
It's unclear how many kids were working there at the time, but Hy-Vee is just one of many corporations that are now regularly being caught by It's unclear.
Giving me major Avon and Mary Kay lady vibes right now. Scary. You know, it's sad because a lot of these companies, they will take the violations, they'll swallow that. They'll swallow it. They'll say, oh, well, you know, it's $30,000 in fine. It's worth it. They'll just pay the fine and then keep doing what they're doing. Instead of actually being shut down, no, they'll just keep doing the crime because they can pay the fine. They're literally paying her more than they paid the fine. Fine's just an operational cost these days.
Clear how many kids were working there at the time, but Hy-Vee is just one of many corporations that are now regularly being caught violating child labor law. For a bill pitched as a cure for so-called worker shortages in Iowa, where the minimum wage is still $7.25, and so many other states, the reality is damning. You've seen the headlines, including the huge recent expose in the New York Times about the proliferation of child labor. Since the pandemic began, violations have exploded and were up by 37% last year. Packer Sanitation Services, Hyundai Kia in Alabama, Blackstone-owned PSSI, a sanitation company with systemic violations. Instead of cracking down, states are lining up to legalize the practices, 10 over the past 2 years alone. It's much the same story in Arkansas, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Big donations by big corporations are leading to laws that put kids at risk in order to save a few bucks. The intention is written in plain English. The original version of the Iowa bill called for total corporate immunity if a kid got injured at a dangerous workplace. Lawmakers were forced to scrub that last part, but employers will still avoid liability if a kid gets into an accident while driving home after working late into the night. Exploit a kid's cheap labor, then send them packing, and no responsibility when there are consequences. It should go without saying, but such a textbook example of corporate greed and corruption shouldn't qualify as educational experience.
So yeah, this is why it's important for us to really, we got to flip this table over. We gotta flip it over because it's literally harming not just us, but you guys got to remember the most disenfranchised among us are also kids. You know, and you get a lot of, look, if a place is unionized, there's a lot of workers that could speak out, rank and file that could speak out against child labor. If the place is employee owned, worker owned, they're not going to want to face that fine. They're not going to want to face that trouble. And on top of it, it's just the morality of it all. So it's like, would you want your kids to be working there under these hazardous conditions? Hell no. It's too dangerous. So this is why it is important, you know, to fight for either unionizing or worker ownership and do our best in regards to that. Because the thing is that we can't sit here and allow this to keep happening. This is why, you know, worker strike back is great. focusing on more ballot initiatives that help out with pushing for, worker-owned businesses. That's great, because the thing is that this also helps in the protection of kids. Sometimes it may be indirect in this helping protect kids. So I'm going to share this video with people as well who might not be aware of this happening, especially to a lot of parents, especially parents to teenagers. Thanks for the super chat, Roger. He says, got here at 2:47. What I miss? Hey, Iowa AG, revoke that lady corporate charter, issue a cooperative charter. That would be cool. Screw Google says, think about how much profit they must be making off these kids if they're paying $750,000 in fines, plus all the bribes. I mean, contributions. Yeah. Cloudy Skies Now says fines need to be high enough to bankrupt corporations. Otherwise, they're going to keep violating the law and treating it as a cost of doing business. But that's the problem. Here's what they do is that they will lobby to make these fines lower. They will pay politicians to make these fines lower so that, we're still being held accountable. But what good is it being held accountable if it's just a slap on the wrist? And that's what they do. And they make it so that the politicians that they bribe, because I'm gonna put it out, I'm gonna say it how the way it really is. These politicians that they bribe, then what happens is that they will make sure these fines are lower. And once the fines are lower, then guess what? They can keep doing it. It's just a cheap way out. Bill Bradley says, of course, the Teamsters are corrupt anyway. There needs to be an entirely new trucker union unrelated to Teamsters in the AFL-CIO entirely. Wow. Yeah, I heard there's a lot of people who are not happy with the union leadership now. Creative Experiment says, not to mention child actors and models. Ooh, you making some points, Creative Experiments. Max Gatica says, did capitalism deliver the goods? Well, it's delivering our kids to the slaughterhouse, damn near literally. Padraic Loinsai says, I worked for Hy-Vee when I was about 15. It sucked. My manager was a tweaker, and I got second-degree burns from the lime away we used to clean the Chinese restaurant area display glass. No gloves. What? Should have sued them. Whoever says kids are completely and entirely disenfranchised, kids tend to always play the role of political pawns with no political power of their own. That used to piss me off when I was a kid. Oh, I don't blame you, whoever. Creative Experiment says Girl Scouts get around child labor laws saying they're training girls useful skills. Ghost Star says UN always looking for kids. Violence says they find a way around child labor laws, meaning while JP Morgan CEO has ties to Epstein. Don't overthink it. Though, right? Yeah, they don't care. Marco says, JB, I'm a union worker cooperative. Unions and co-ops should work together too. Oh, cool. That is pretty awesome. By the way, if you work in a co-op, especially, I'm just saying, like, and especially if, look, I'll put it this way: if you're in a co-op and you like your job or you like where you work, and it's a co-op, advertise it, man. Like, not like be like, oh, I work here, but advertise the business. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to necessarily say that you work there, but let people know so that they can support those businesses. Oh, damn, Rick. Oh, damn. That was. Mm-mm. My God. SM69 says, yeah, Iowa is in the grips of right-wing Republicans. The Dems have abandoned the state. That's on purpose. Look, I'll put it. Look, people get mad at me when I say this, but Democrats work in tandem with Republicans. They are all in one same party. It's just like having it's just like monopolies or near monopolies where you'll have two companies that own the entire, entirely or almost nearly entirely the entire market. And so they'll come to an agreement and they'll like, okay, we control this part of the market, you guys control that part of the market. We won't step on each other's toes, but we have it all cornered. The same thing with political parties. The Democrats and Republicans are basically working in tandem with each other. They're not against each other. They're actually helping each other. Because the thing is that as the country goes further and further to the right, the Democrats, they're loving it. And the thing is that they continuously use the Republicans to go, oh, well, these guys, they're horrible, bad people. And so guess what? Donate to our Act Blue so that we can fight against them. And then the Republicans do the same. Oh, man, these Democrats, they're horrible, bad people. Donate to us so that we can keep things going and shift further to the right. That's how they are, man. Thank you for the super sticker, Aaron. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Romaine Lettuce says, delivering our kids to the slaughterhouse. These kids are seen as livestock to be slaughtered for profit. Yeah. This is why they're also in your kids' schools recruiting them to go into military service. That's another thing. Outside Steeler fan says Reagan and administration after did a terrific job rolling back regulations of the last 40 years. We're now back in pre-1920s with labor issues in this country. Yeah. And that's, look, we got to fight, and by fighting, I mean building, mutual aid networks, building solidarity networks, going against both parties. And look, I'll put it this way: if you can push for unions to form in your area, push unions. If you can push for worker co-ops, go even further. If you're in a union, push for a worker co-op. If you're not in a union at all, either push for a worker co-op or push for a union. But then if you're a union, push for a worker co-op. Do it all, because trust me, I'm gonna tell you right now, we need as many people on our side as possible because they do not care. All right, so let me go to Rockfin. I got a few comments on there. Let me share my screen really quick. I'm running over time. Thanks to Laura Beza for the $2 tip. Says, F these corporations. Thank you so very much. I agree. Drew Tech says their depravity knows no bounds. The corporation, that is. Absolutely. Rory O'Neill, good to see you. Happy Sunday to you too. Laura Beza said you missed some good stuff, Rod. Drew Tech says, I'm saddened by people that scapegoat communists as being the ones to blame for the inevitable failings of capitalism. Shows that those people don't actually care about their own children despite the posture they put out. Yeah, the thing is that it's funny because everybody talks about, socialism never worked in this country. And the thing is like, socialism would work better if capitalism didn't interfere in it. But that's a whole nother conversation some people aren't ready for. Laura says, yes, but local union involvement is important, though. Yes, that's important. Can be very frustrating. It is because people just criticize national union politics, but local unions can vote for their leaders of bigger districts. Okay, thank you so very much. Appreciate it, Laura. So yeah, look, like I said, worker power starts in the home. Talk to your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, your best friend's kids, the kids across the street, your neighbor's kids. I don't care. If they are working, talk to them about worker power. If you see them putting on a uniform and going to work, if they got some time, talk to them about their rights as a worker. Let them know. And still put that seed in their head. Talk to them about worker cooperatives too. Talk to them about that. I talked to my nephew about worker cooperatives. I'm like, bro, wouldn't it be nice if you could, have a democratic say over your job? And then on top of that, also, share the profits of the workplace and you partially own it? He said, that'd be fire. I was like, well, that's what your uncle's for. So, yeah. Seth says if socialism worked, it would have to work in a world with capitalism. Your little dream doesn't work in a world where everyone doesn't play along. Oh, gosh. Seth. Look, tell me you haven't looked at United States coups and interventions in other countries without telling me you haven't looked at United States coups and interventions in other countries. Tell me you have not. Like, really? If socialism hasn't worked, then why is Cuba still operating? Why is Vietnam still operating? Why is the People's Republic of China still operating? Why is the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, still operating? They're operating primarily because they were able to stave off the problems or the push from capitalist nations in order to put them under. Now, are they not doing as good as they should be? Yes, but that's because of a lot of the embargoes and sanctions that the capitalist nations, and particularly the United States, is perpetuating against them. And by the way, the United States isn't doing to North Korea what they did to Libya because Libya doesn't have nukes. And DPRK does. And DPRK is like, do not step over here. And so the United States is like, we can only go around about. We can't actually go directly into them. So guess what? It does work. The problem is capitalism doesn't want it to work. despite capitalism failing over and 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 over again, guess what? You see that maybe it's not the right system for us. Talking about the hundreds of millions of people that have died because of perpetual wars, because of perpetual starving, because of perpetual floods, because of perpetual storms, and all this other stuff that keeps happening because of capitalism. So it does work. The problem is that capitalism keeps trying to get in the way because it wants to keep itself in power, even though it fails over and over and over. Oh, why didn't that show up yet? Okay, let's go back to Rockfin. Solid like a rock. Okay. The thrill is still hot. Sorry, I don't get that song in my head. So, thanks for the tip, Roger. Roger says, I just got off the phone with a gentleman from Orange County, Florida, where I'm from there, who I met Friday on a monthly Zoom meeting that the Public Banking Institute holds. He got interested when he saw me speaking about using the Citizen Ballot Initiative process to get public banking. He told me that since Florida has a local state with home rule, he'll be pushing public banks for Orange County. Jay, do you live in Orange? Yes, I do. Let's do it. Thanks, Roger. Exciting. All right. All right. Now, so I don't want to go too much farther over time. I don't know if CJ's doing a stream today. I didn't see that he was doing one before I went live. I'm just checking to make sure, because if he is, then let me get off of here. But if not, then I'm not too concerned about going over time. But yeah. Let's see. Okay. Nope. All right. So, but yeah. So the thing is like we gotta just we gotta take this system down. And by the way, Seth, I don't want you to think that I'm attacking you. It's just And the thing is that we have to be careful about who we get our information from too, because a lot of times we get our information from people who see these countries, the fact that they're actually doing better for their people despite what the United States does, and they'll still attack them. So we also have to be careful about who we get our information from. And a lot of times we're taught about socialism and communism from capitalists or capitalist sympathizers. And so the thing is that we have to look at it for ourselves. So I'm not trying to attack you, but that's the thing. We have to look into it ourselves and find out what is going on with them from their perspective as well. Look at it from different sides. Commander says DPK is the fastest and strongest developed communist party in history. In less than 15 years, they built what took USSR and China decades to accomplish. Thank you so very much for that. And yes, this is a socialist channel, by the way, in communist channel. So, But I'm going to be heading up. Roger. One more. Okay. All right. One more, Saban. Okay. Roger be making me laugh, man. All right. Roger says public banks can encourage credit unions and community banks to have loan programs for investing specifically in startup co-op businesses, as well as lending programs to workers who wish to purchase the company from their employers. Also, help provide support to organizations that help businesses in the conversion process to help transition from traditional businesses model to a co-op model to a co-op mode. Oh, that's pretty sweet. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. So yeah. JB, how about adding union co-op organizing to RBN local chapters? I mean, that's something that we got definitely consider. That's something I can definitely consider for my chapter, because I think that's very important. But yeah, thank you for that. I'm hungry. I gotta get going. Oh, by the way, one thing. The hell? My desk is a mess, but stay tuned. I will be getting into the book by Dr. Devon Price, Laziness Does Not Exist, on my channel. So if you guys would like, you guys can also go to my channel, because I do readings from different revolutionaries and different thinkers. I also will be continuing the autobiography of Assata Shakur as well on my channel. Let me give you guys the link to my channel, just in case you guys are interested in seeing my channel as well. Let's see. All right, so if you guys would like to, you guys can go to my channel as well, if you guys are interested. And so those, as well as, on Tuesday, I will be having Robert Durden on this week on Tuesday at 2. So from the Political Fight Club. So be sure to thank you so much, Roger. I can put you in contact with him if you want it. Okay. Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk in the DMs. And so I will be having him on. We'll be talking about some news stories together here on my channel on Tuesday at 2. And then on later this week, I will also be having I'll be talking to an expert on China. So I can't wait. I am actually very excited. So I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you guys need to stay tuned. I put the link to my channel in the chat. So when that comes out, you guys will see, and I'm excited to talk to them. So yeah, so just stay tuned. So I'm excited. But anywho, I want you guys to have yourself a wonderful day. Also, by the way, if you guys would like to, you guys can also help us out with the fundraiser for our graphic designer, Aaron. You guys can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout, or you guys can go to Cash App, $Mutual Aid Forever, so that we can raise money for our graphic designer, Aaron. She does an amazing job, so I appreciate her very much. Thank you so much for all you do. Also, thanks to all the patrons on Patreon. Did you guys like the stream? Go ahead, like the stream. Thanks to all the members. Thanks to all the subscribers. Thanks to all you guys. We would not be able to be here without you. And also, if you guys would like to get email notifications, go to our Substack at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. You guys can get email notifications to notify when our clips and our streams are live. So thank you so very much to everybody. You guys have yourself a wonderful day. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Mwah, forehead kisses, because why not? I like giving out forehead kisses. Was there anything else I was forgetting? Oh, yeah. Love you. I love you. You love me. We're a great big family with a great big hug and a kiss from me to you. Won't you say you love me too?